happy to have Debbie Wilson, Memory Care Art Specialist at Morningstar at Bear Creek here in Colorado Springs. And we're going to talk about something I'm finding very interesting the more you describe it to me, using art and creativity to assist those with memory impairment. Debbie, thank you for coming out. Could you tell me a little bit about what you do at Morningstar at Bear Creek with the memory impaired residents you have?
Well, thank you for having me this afternoon. It's an honor to be here. My job as a memory care art specialist involves finding ways to use the creative process to soothe and to involve our residents in activities to give their life meaning and purpose and to bring enjoyment to their day. And we do that through a number of ways. When we use the word art, that narrows what I do, actually.
It's actually much more than that.
It is much more than that. It's about the creative process. And I like to use the word process because it's never about the product. It's about the process. And we do that through a myriad of ways. We can take a gentleman who has never taken any art lessons in his life and has no interest in art at all, and I do something non-traditional. I will hand him a pair of old shoes, and I will give him a little can that looks like shoe polish, and he will take a rag, and there will be a memory response, and he will start to polish those shoes. And you're probably asking, what has that got to do with the creative process? But what that brings to this gentleman is he is being soothed by something that is tactile and visual, and that's what creativity is all about. It's using our eyes and using our sense of touch, and it creates a soothing moment for him, and it brings him back to a place in his life where he remembers doing that. And he might not do it artistically, but it has a purpose for him. We have to remember that our residents have lost their short-term memory, but they have not lost their intelligence. So the things that I bring to them have to have some sort of dignity and purpose. A lot of their behavior is childlike, but it is not childish. And that is a big distinction. A lot of people see, when they come to our facility, they see some artwork that looks like coloring pages, but when they take a closer look, I will have a handout to give to them, and it's a reason and benefits sheet, and it explains why we did the project. For example, I have a drawing of a man, and he looks a little bit like a clown, and he's got very curly hair and kind of a circular nose, and I have the residents take markers and color this clown-like figure. But the reason it benefits them and their dementia is because it's very hard for people to wrap their head around abstract concepts. If I hand them a brush and say, here, take this paint and this brush and paint a picture, that's going to be very difficult for them. So I guide them by using compartmentalized art projects. So getting back to the clown drawing, his nose is a circle, and they understand a circle, and they'll fill it in. And his hair has little circle shapes in it, and they will fill those in. And his bow tie will have little squares in it, so they'll fill those in. And so when the project is done, they laugh at it, they think it's silly, but they're guided by those familiar shapes. Another thing...
Is it also the process of repetition?
It is. It's like a crossword.
Making squares, like making circles, making shapes over and over again that reinforces that.
Yes, and those people that are good at crossword puzzles who like to fill in the blanks and people that are left-brained, they find those kind of projects very soothing and very familiar. Other things that I do is take other familiar, non-traditional art materials like rubber bands, and I'll get a small square, maybe 6 inches by 6 inches, of white foam core board. I will hand them that, and I'll hand them a box of colored rubber bands. And they know what a rubber band does. And I will just have them take all of the rubber bands and wrap them around that foam core. And it snaps, and it makes funny sounds as the rubber bands are going around.
It's also tactile. I can picture that. Yes.
Very, very tactile and familiar. So it has a memory response, and they laugh and they think it's silly. But at the end, it's a very interesting art project because it's wrapped in different ways. Everybody does it differently. No two people do it alike, and it represents what's in their heart. If they were kind of a creative person to begin with, their rubber band project will be really artsy. And if they were very pragmatic and maybe an accountant in their younger years, it will be very linear and very logical. So it's reflective of what they used to do. And if they're a left brain person or a creative person, it kind of comes out in that. Other projects that I have done that are very successful is to take other familiar objects that women would have used in all of the years of their life. And one of those things is to wrap presents. And I will give them an empty box, and I will pass out wrapping paper and tape and bows. And I won't even say anything, and they will reach and they will know what to do. And they make the most beautifully wrapped gifts you've ever seen, just because it's a memory response. And it also ends up being this lovely little package, and it's very artsy. But again, it's a non-traditional form of the creative process.
Now, you also use music as well.
Music is the universal language.
Yes.
And everybody knows music. Everybody grew up with music. And even those in late stages of dementia, it reaches them. Sometimes they'll close their eyes and they'll just listen. But if you look down, they're tapping their toes. Mm-hmm. It reaches them, or they're clapping their hands. And they remember the words. Even the people that have trouble with language, they can start singing and they'll get every verse from every song that we're playing on the piano or on a guitar. They'll remember all of that.
Debbie, is there any particular type of music that gets the best response with your residents?
The new music will not resonate with them because as the brain struggles with dementia, what happens is the person goes back in time, and so they're going to be more familiar with the music of their youth. So if they're from the era of the 30s or the 40s or the 50s.
There's some big bands.
Big bands, and Frank Sinatra.
Jazz, yeah.
Rosemary Clooney, all of the good standards. That's what's going to reach them. So it's a good memory response for them, and it takes them to a place where they were healthy and they were young in the prime of their life, and it's a very, very meaningful place to go, and it's a trip down memory lane, and there's really good memories for them, and we try to bring music to Morningstar every occasion that we can because everybody benefits from it.
Do you ever have live performances?
Most of our entertainers that come to Morningstar are all live.
Catch a falling star and put it in your pocket, never let it fade away. Catch a falling star and put it in your pocket, save it for a rainy day.
I'm speaking to Debbie Wilson, Memory Care Art Specialist at Morningstar at Bear Creek, and we're talking about Debbie's work with memory-impaired residents and the methods she uses to stimulate their memory. Debbie, what kind of results do you expect from this kind of therapy? What's common?
Well, the thing I like to look for is at an end of a session where I'm working with a resident, I bring to them a more soothing environment than where I found them.
Okay.
And one way I like to do that is I have these lap kits. I bring the world to them. A lot of our residents are in wheelchairs. Mm-hmm. And in the creative process, sometimes they're not able to attend one of our activities because there's too much stimulation from noise or for people walking by or looking out a window.
Yes.
So I put together these lap kits, and what they are is a small canvas bag, and I will take and put everything in there that might bring to them a memory response. For instance, I have one lady who really loved music when she was young, and in her lap kit, I put sheet music from the 30s and 40s. I put a music box. I put a little triangle, and I also put a sheet of paper that has all of these singers from the 30s and 40s so that she could look at that. So when I went into her room and we sat and talked, she had no interest in anything. And I would pull out one item at a time. And finally, there was a little bit of spark of an interest from her. And we started talking about music. And her biggest response was looking at all of the actors from the 30s and the 40s who used to sing. And she started going down the list and telling me each person and what their name was. And by the time our session ended, I had a miniature piano that I brought with me. It was just a little tiny thing that sits in her lap. So I went from her not wanting to do anything to having her sitting there and playing that little piano with me and being happy and being engaged in something that brought her joy and soothed her nerves and made her feel like she was having a really good afternoon. And that's the whole point, is these activities and these lap kits are just to bring purpose and meaning and beauty and love back into their life.
So this kind of stimulation, be it music or something more tactile, makes them more responsive and more alert. Would that be accurate?
Yes, everything that I try to bring in, I've thought about how it will impact them. And I do that. I like the word tactile that you keep mentioning, because the sense of touch is important. One thing that I do with the ladies is most of them, because of their generation, they all used to do quilting, or they would sew, and just the feel of the fabric, whether it be corduroy or just a nice cotton, they like to pick it up and they like to feel the fabric. And one project that I did, I cut it into strips and I had them glue it on a piece of paper, and they used any design they wanted. I didn't guide it at all. And they all sat there and they picked out what strips of fabric they wanted, and at the end of the project, it looked like they had a little square of wallpaper from a 1940s kitchen or from Grandma's bedroom. Yeah. And that was their tactile involvement, because they wanted to touch that fabric. And they wanted to have the visual stimulation of seeing those old patterns on the fabric. Yes. So that was very successful and brought them a lot of joy and good memories. And then what happens is many, many times after the project is finished, or right in the middle of it, we'll just start talking about, well, what was it like in Grandma's kitchen? And the project, it becomes secondary to the reminiscing.
Waking up those memories.
Yes. And someone starts to talk about the pie that Grandma used to make in that kitchen, or the dog that sat on the back porch, or the fact that the paper boy would always wake them up by hitting the screen door with the paper. And pretty soon there's a dialogue, and everybody's involved sitting at the table. And it's not about art anymore. It's not about creativity anymore. It's about people feeling that they can talk to one another and they can reminisce, and the joy comes back. And they're all proud of their stories, and they feel important, and they feel valued. And it's my job to bring that to the table through these other means.
Well, Debbie, let me ask you one more thing. What brought you to be the memory care art specialist at Morningstar at Bear Creek? What is it inside that makes you so good at what you do, essentially?
Well, I have a background as an art teacher, elementary school through high school, and I found myself wanting to come into an assisted living facility one time and teach art. I thought that would be really an enjoyable experience, and I did that for a number of years. And eventually it took me to working with people that had dementia and Alzheimer's, and I noticed that there wasn't a lot out there that was effective in reaching them in a soothing and meaningful way. And so I spent a number of years trying to develop programs that would be innovative and meaningful and really get to the heart of who these people are. And there's a saying, and I don't know the author, but it says, a friend is someone who knows the song in your heart and can sing it back to you when you have forgotten the words. And my job is to find the song and also find a way to sing it back to them through the process of creativity.
You can find out more about Debbie's work and Morningstar at Bear Creek at morningstarseniorliving.com. Debbie, thank you for sharing time with me.
Thank you for having me.